What's up guys, it's Oscar and I'm finally doing the Frayla deck list. Now a lot of people have been asking for it, been messaging either on Discord or on Facebook saying where's the list. If you remember, we had a video with Colin when he was showcasing his Panda deck list again, where me and him played. I was playing a Frayla list. The list from back then was complete trash. It was just stuff I threw together. I think anybody who's trying to build a Dark Elves list is probably trying to incorporate every single Dark Elf, and I don't think that's the way to go. Well, for one, Dark Elves really isn't the way to go, period. It needs a lot of support that needs to be introduced, hopefully in the next set. But for now, if you're trying to run something just for your locals or just for fun against a friend, this could be an option. The way I went back then against Colin in that last list was running Dark Elf Sorcerer in combination with a Treasonous Guard and Dark Elf Spy. I was trying to ping Colin for a lot of damage, and I wasn't really swinging a lot. And I was also trying to run right and left hands, and I never actually utilized the ruler either on the front side or even Judgmented at all. I don't even think I performed Judgment once. This is a new approach, so go ahead and just hear me out. I did make some last minute changes. I was talking to, I think it's Omega Zero in our Discord. If you're not on there, join us already. Link in description below. And he was I originally had Melfi's in this deck list just for some ramp, but it's not even necessary. And with his advice, I was able to throw in some Abduls instead. So we're going to go ahead and go over the whole list. First, we'll start off with the ruler itself. The ruler is Frayla, as we've already said. She is a Dark Elf, so she does work with Shade Assassin for giving it swiftness, as the ruler is a card you do control. Her judgment cost is 2 darkness, 1 void, and an energize of 1 dark. The best part of this card that I think makes her the most useful is her ability at end of turn to put a Dark Elf Resonator from your graveyard into your hand for only 300 damage to yourself. This was also another way I was trying to ping my opponent for damage using Dark Elf Sorcerer. Again, I didn't even put that whole ping and bounces your opponent damage thing at all. You'll see how I went. Now, if you do perform Judgment, which is super useful, it is hard to see on an Uber, but essentially she comes into play. She'll grab a Dark Elf Resonator from your graveyard and put it into play with her. Now, this is a great combination when you're going to throw it in with, say, left hand, as when left hand enters the field, it would look for a right hand from the graveyard and bring it into play with her as well. So just from Judgment, you bring in 3 bodies into the field against your opponent. Now, she does have another ability that when she attacks, she'll actually help buff and give swiftness to another Dark Elf Resonator you control. So for instance, one of those hands that you just brought in can now gain +4/+4 and swiftness until end of turn. So now you can be swinging with 2 different people instead. A way to give her swiftness herself is for 1 red or 1 fire will. You're able to give her swiftness until end of turn. Can be useful to swing in for 1,000 if your opponent has nothing on his field. And then lastly, I used this a couple times against Colin in practice, but her last ability is a red and a darkness will. And what it says is for every Dark Elf you control, you ping your opponent for 100 damage. It's not worded exactly like that, but essentially it does the same thing. So with this J ruler out, she is still a Dark Elf, so she would count herself towards that. And let's just say in that perfect scenario, you got left hand, right hand combo when you put Judgment into her. You could tap 2, ping for 300. Now I know there's probably going to be better options. You're like, I'd rather Lightning Strike for 1 and do 5. But in a scenario where you're like, probably say super close to taking the game and all you need is that last little bit of damage and you don't have the cards for burning your opponent, that could be an option in those scenarios. Now when it comes for your stone deck, which we'll jump into immediately next, I am running black, red, and green in this deck, just like my Mikage deck was. Excuse the odd man out here for the stones, but you're running green, black. Most of your deck is going to be black, a good amount of it is green, so I'm trying to focus on it. Very little of it is red, mostly Lightning Strikes, I believe, is the only thing that I actually run as red, plus the fact that the J ruler itself could utilize the red once you have it. I then run 2 of the Gusting Darkness Magic Stone. Now these come from Vingolf 3, and so if many of you don't have, say, Vingolf 3 stones or any cards at all, I would say a good option for replacing these 2 cards would be basic stones. I considered either 2 green or a green and a black. I wouldn't do 2 black because there's often times where I needed 1 more green will and I never had access to it. These 2 stones actually used to be green red stones and they were just complete garbage. I took them out. So this is what I have using that. And then of course last, Scorched Bales for black-red, for the obvious, just black and some more red to help balance things out. Actually, it's only red, so yeah, make sure you have it. Now, before we get into the Resonators, I'm going to go through the additions and the spells. I did say addition. I am running 2 of the same addition. I am running Idol of Willpower. Now, this is something I could consider, say, removing. I only ran it because it's 1 void, so it's void, so it's easily slottable into any deck. It only costs 1. It comes into play, and then for 1 more void to activate it, I'm able to banish it and then gain 500 life and draw a card. Now, to me, that's useful. I'm pinging myself for 300 often, so to gain 500 life here and there and draw a card seems useful. The fact that it essentially costs 2 to do it, or even you pay 1 and maybe you can't even activate it right away, so you're in fear of your opponent having a Heavenly Gust to take it out, could be the issue. But I found it more useful than not in a lot of cases. I wouldn't really know what else to replace this with. Again, there may be better options out there, but I really enjoy running this card in it. Now, to break down to the spells, I do, like I said, have 4 Lightning Strikes, just to hit your opponent for 500 damage, or if you have it and it's open and you swing in for, say, the kill, but they block and you're able to kill off their Resonator because it's 500 or less, you can ping that. 1 Heavenly Gust, just in case they're running additions. This is easily able to slot out and put in something more useful, maybe another Divine Bird of Ataraxia, which I do run in this deck. Now, the rest of the spells here are more of like a control package. Now, you have 2 Nameless Mist to be able to remove certain cards from your opponent's hands, like, say, Severing Winds, which is usually what is targeted. Going against a blue deck, which Colin had built at one point, it was easily able to take out the 2-cost, one of the 2-cost cards, which I think there's 2 different ones, which sends either to the top or bottom of the deck when a Resonator is attacking or doing anything. 4 Scorn of Dark Alice, very useful card. Take out either hooks, or when I went against Colin's Golem deck, giant golems are able to be removed. Essentially anything that can seem a threat as a Resonator, you can just take it out completely. I do have 2 Favor's Spell to cancel Quick Cast. This helps against the 2 blue cost card that I was just mentioning a second ago that would send to the top or bottom of my deck that my opponent could have. And maybe I even want to stop a Severing Winds my opponent might have. And speaking of Severing Winds, I do run 3. I don't know if I would run more than 3. I only run 3 now because it's all I own. But I think 3 is a good solid number to stay on. If you look at a lot of my deck, I think there's very few cards I actually commit full 4 to. I'm usually doing 2 to 3 of each one. Whether that's a mistake or not, who knows? Let me know in the comments below. Now we'll jump into the Resonators. The first set of Resonators I'll show you are the draw power. So as I already mentioned, Divine Bird of Ataraxia. I do only run 2 of them. I have 2 more in the sideboard should I come across a heavy flyer deck, as well as 4 Tama. A lot of these are just really obvious. You run them to gain cards into your hand, and then you can, say, sack them to ping stuff for damage. Now, we do run 3 Abduls. Again, this is a new addition. This originally was in my sideboard to help stop automatic abilities from triggering. Upon discussion on our Discord server, I did come to realize maybe Melfi was a mistake, and she wasn't 100% useful, and I was never really activating her ability on her enter during my opponent's turns or anything, or even on my turns to help prevent damage. So I automatically put the Abduls in to help prevent, again, automatic abilities from triggering. Also, he's at 600 defense, so it's very hard to have your opponent just lightning strike him. And also, like I said, we're hitting ourselves for 300 damage on most turns, so we can return a Dark Elf to our hand. So I assumed more life gain would help, as well as a 600 attack Resonator, so I went ahead and went with Shade, Envoy of Darkness. 2-cost black comes into play when you're able to activate him. So after you've already passed your turn, say to your opponent's turn or the beginning of your next turn, you would tap him to ping something for 600 to be able to gain 600 life. So this helps us destroy certain Resonators, such as Abdul, like I've already mentioned before. And if my opponent has any Abduls in and I'm trying to trigger my left and right hands, I can sit here and ping that for 600 damage instead. Pretty useful. Now lastly, we'll go ahead and break down into the actual Dark Elves themselves. I ran a total of 10. Not a lot of Dark Elves that I found that were super useful that need to be included. We'll look at the first set, full play set of Shade Assassin. This card's great for 1 cost, and it has swiftness automatically. If my opponent, say, swung with everything he had, trying to just to whittle my life down, I can play a Shade Assassin on my turn, swing into one of his Resonators that he may have rested already, just to be able to start destroying things. And then in the turn, I can return it from the graveyard to my hand, just paying 300 life. It's a great removal card. Now, lastly is the left and right hand cards. I do run a 3 and 3 of each. I had considered running, like, say, 2 of one, 3 of the other, or full play sets of 4. Now, these 2 cards come in useful quite a bit, quite a few combinations of things you can do. I'll go over them real quick to explain what they do in case you're not familiar. Now, the left hand will come into play, and it's a 2 cost, 4/5. She'll search the graveyard for the right hand, and if she finds it, she'll bring it into play with her. So it's a great way of paying 2 and getting 2 different people out in the field. Right hand instead would come into play and search your deck for left hand, but put it into your hand instead. Not super great, but not too horrible as well. Let's say I put right hand into play, gain left hand in my hand. Opponent goes into their turn, I declare a block with her. She goes to graveyard. My turn, I would play the left hand, bringing in the right hand. So you get out both either way. It's pretty awesome. I like it. Again, with Judgment, when your J-Ruler comes into play, she says pull a Dark Elf Resonator from your graveyard into play. It's a great time to pull left hand into play with her, who then would trigger pulling right hand with her. There's a bunch of other really awesome combinations of things to do. Let's just say you had the 2 into play, you swung with one of them and it died, and maybe the other one died as well, and you go to the graveyard, and then you're only on your ruler's side, so in a turn you return, say, one of them to hand, the left hand. She comes back into your hand, you come back in your turn later, you play it. You just keep reoccurring these Dark Elves. Now, this is a cool common playstyle I would like to see. This is the support going forward that would be neat, is stuff that is either like Shade Assassin, where it's destroying something and then coming back into play, or these left and right hands, which are searching each other out. Now, they had support like this, but larger, maybe even flyers. You'd start seeing Dark Elves really going somewhere at that point. Now, guys, that is the basis of my entire list. It's very self-explanatory, and I hope I detailed it as best as I can. I often feel like I'm rambling on and I'm going nowhere with things, so we're going to cut it at this point. I will go over my sideboard. Now, my sideboard is mostly a handful of cards that will complete out numbers from the deck in case I feel I need to side them in. I do this only because I feel we each all have different local metas, so you would find it more necessary to fill your own sideboard in. And I would say to go for it and do that instead of following what I'm going to put in my sideboard. But for instance, I think some useful cards that you should put in still is going to be 2 more of the birds. In case you go against a heavy flyer deck, you can side these in and takes 2 of something else out. I do run 1 more additional Heavenly Gust. Now, for my local meta, I would consider running 2 in the sideboard because we do have a Kaguya player who, I don't know if he still plays Kaguya, but it was very useful against that. Again, say you're going against something that's heavy in flyers, you do have Gale Force, which I only put 3 in the sideboard, so that's plenty enough. And then in case you're running against, say, Sacred Elves or anything that's low cost attack that may be doing a lot of work, I do run 3 Unseen Pressure, as you do naturally run quite a bit of black in your deck. Alright guys, that's all I've got for y'all today. I hope you enjoyed the deck list. I hope some of y'all will go out there and really do something cool with this. And if you do make any changes, let me know in the comments below or jump on Discord and let us know. Definitely open to hear it. And in case you're wanting to read a little bit more into detail on this, I do kind of go more into detail on the article. Check our website out right here, and you can see my article. It should be posted either later today or tomorrow morning once I've proofread it one more time. But thank you for watching again. Give us a like, give us a dislike if you hated it, but hopefully you didn't hate it, and we'll see you next time.